Hey everyone, it's Sevy. As our first limited preservation unit, Master Diviner Fu Xuan has arrived to protect us from misfortune, whether against Mommy Kafka's bullets or in actual combat, with mechanics that definitely make her stand out against her preservation peers. This guide will cover Fu Xuan's kit and traces, Eidolons, best relic and Lycone builds, gameplay tips, and team synergies to help maximize her amazing defensive utilities. Let's begin.
The future sits within my reach. As clear as daylight.
Fu Xuan is a preservation quantum unit that introduces a new and unique way of protecting your team. She reduces and redirects damage that your allies take and offers neat utilities that make her act like a Swiss knife survival support that's capable of solo sustaining your team through the hardest content. Let's go through her kit and see how she works. Fu Xuan's basic attack deals quantum damage which fully scales on her max HP, as with her other abilities, making attack stats irrelevant on Fu Xuan. Onto her main defensive abilities, Fu Xuan's skill activates the Matrix of Prescience field. The field grants allies the Knowledge effect, which increases their max HP by a portion of Fu Xuan's max HP, as well as their crit rate. This lets Fu Xuan both provide survival and offensive benefits, making her more than just a tank. More importantly, a percent of the damage allies receive will be redirected or apportioned to Fu Xuan instead. This is Fu Xuan's unique way of protecting your teammates. Since allies still take damage, any effects that require taking damage to be triggered will still be activated, which gives her a unique preservation synergy with units that do want to take damage. Meanwhile, Fu Xuan will be soaking up a lot of damage herself, which she does extremely well with her tank-focused build and other survival abilities. Note that apportioned damage does not give energy to Fu Xuan, and it will still be modified by Fu Xuan's defense and damage reduction stats when she receives it. This matrix field also lasts for 3 turns of Fu Xuan herself, unlike other buffs which count down independently on your units. It's similar to how Asta's attack buff or Luocha's healing field duration work. This can have its advantages, especially if her teammates are very fast or have advanced forward mechanics, since they won't burn through Matrix's effects so fast. Instead, you want Fu Xuan to just refresh it on her every 3rd turn to avoid downtime. Additionally, as long as Fu Xuan is alive, her talent applies a misfortune avoidance effect to the entire team, which gives a damage reduction bonus, further improving everyone's survivability. And if Fu Xuan's HP is 50% or lower, she will automatically trigger a self-healing effect if she has a stack, which you can see at her character icon. This is important as it's Fu Xuan's main way to sustain herself despite all the damage redirected towards her, and you can regain stacks by using her ultimate. Casting Fu Xuan's ultimate deals HP scaling AoE quantum damage and regains 1 healing trigger stack for her auto self-heal effect, which she can stack up to 2 times. As for the toughness damage, it only deals the equivalent of 2 basic attacks. Smaller enemies can be quantum broken easily, but bosses will require more timing effort if you want her to break them. Still, it's great that Fu Xuan can contribute to breaking enemies faster on top of AoE damage. As for her technique, casting it creates a barrier for 20 seconds which can block all enemy attacks in the open world, preventing them from catching you off guard. Then when you initiate a battle with the barrier active, Fu Xuan immediately activates the Matrix field for 2 turns. The most potentially lethal scenario for her is when a boss uses a very strong AoE attack, as Fu Xuan will take a lot of simultaneously apportioned damage from all allies as well as from the enemy's direct hit, especially since a killing blow will not trigger her auto heal. Having a sufficiently leveled and built Fu Xuan with a good balance of HP and defense stats will reduce the chances of her dying from this kind of attack. Then you can get her own HP back up with her auto heal and your allies with her ultimate. Fu Xuan's Ascension abilities also add significant support upgrades. Her A2 ability lets Fu Xuan regenerate an extra 20 energy by using her skill when the Matrix of Prescience is active. You'll naturally trigger this every 3 turns when you're refreshing her Matrix anyway, but it's also an option to use this even while the field's duration is still long if you want to recharge her ult faster. Next, her A4 ability makes her ultimate also heal all other allies by a small amount. This healing scales on Fu Xuan's max HP, and while it won't match up to actual heals of abundance units, it generally doesn't need to since Fu Xuan already reduces and redirects so much of the damage her allies receive to herself while also self-healing. This is another important utility as Fu Xuan can now heal both herself and allies, boosting her sustained performance even more. Lastly, her A6 lets Fu Xuan apply a CC debuff prevention status on allies while the Matrix is active. If it gets consumed once, then all allies will lose the status, and you have to refresh the Matrix to reapply it. Basically, it's a one-time guaranteed CC debuff prevention every time you activate the Matrix, which is pretty useful in many scenarios. It also opens up the possibility of using her skill even if the Matrix won't expire soon yet, if you want to immediately refresh the debuff resistance guarantee, though it comes at the cost of a skill point of course. As for her stat bonus traces, she gets effect resistance, HP, and a surprising amount of crit rate. Then as you level her traces, prioritize her talent and skill first, and her ult and basic can be lower priority. Now for her energy and rotations, you generally want to follow a skill basic attack rotation. So you'll want to refresh the skill before it expires, or else there will be one turn cycle with Fu Xuan where the matrix field isn't active. And remember that using her skill while the matrix is active will proc her Ascension 2 ability to gain extra 20 energy. This rotation also means that she'll only generate one skill point every 3 turns. So she can still be a skill point positive character, though the generation is relatively slower compared to other supports whose skill usage isn't as strict as hers. If you use her skill more often because you want to generate more energy or refresh the CC debuff resistance effect, that would end up making her have some SP neutral rotations. To achieve at least a 4-turn ult recharge time with some conditional cases of 3-turn recharge times, having either an ERR rope or her S1 signature light cone plus the sprightly Von Wack is a good general baseline. A more consistent 3-turn recharge rotation would need additional ERR from her signature light cone, sprightly Von Wack, and external energy sources like getting hit. At least preservation characters have a higher chance to get hit, and if you're not using her signature light cone, then using an aggro increasing light cone like Landa's Choice or Moment of Victory could further help with this. So 3-turn recharge times with even just an ERR rope can be achievable if she's drawing a lot of hits, but don't feel pressured to always guarantee it. Fluctuating between 3 to 4-turn recharge times will be normal depending on the combat scenario. Fu Xuan feels pretty much complete and super tanky at E0, but let's just take a quick look at her Eidolons. E1 makes the knowledge effect also increase your team's crit damage by 30%, which is basically a team damage boost. E2 gives her a team-wide reviving mechanic if her matrix is active, which can only trigger once per battle. It's very similar to Bailu's, but one key difference is that it revives all allies that would simultaneously die against one killing blow, which can be helpful against enemies that have strong AoE attacks. But as far as E2s usually go, the value isn't as great compared to others, since with a well-built Fu Xuan, having a teammate die will be rare anyway. Still, it is an extra layer of comfort. E3 increases her skill and talent levels. E4 makes Fu Xuan regenerate 5 energy when other allies are attacked while her matrix is active for faster ult cycling. E5 increases her ultimate and basic attack levels. And E6 makes it so that after activating her matrix, she starts accumulating the HP lost by your entire team, which will be used to increase the base damage of her next ultimate attack. This is capped at 120% of Fu Xuan's max HP and refreshes after you use her ultimate. Now let's move on to Fu Xuan's relic build, starting with her stats. For her body piece, HP is the best to boost both her HP scaling utilities and base damage. For her feet piece, speed and HP both have their cases, but ultimately, I would highly recommend speed in order to hit higher speed breakpoints. It results in faster turn cycling, letting her generate skill points and energy faster, which speeds up her ultimate charging time as well. Despite her matrix field being tied to her turns and that going slower can lead to less frequent refreshes, the benefits of faster speed are much more worth it. For the planar sphere, go for HP, and for the rope, you can use either energy regeneration rate or HP. So I would generally prioritize ERR, since recharging her ult faster can let her get self-healing triggers and team heals more often, and can lead to faster AoE quantum breaking. Check the earlier rotation section for reference. As for substats, get speed to hit your target breakpoint, HP, defense, and effect resistance. You do want to get defense rolls as well to further reduce the damage she takes from direct hits or apportion damage. These are the most important stats to boost her tank roll. For reference, the stats I've personally used her with are about 7k HP and 1.5k defense on an S1 day 1 light cone, speed boots, and an ERR rope. I personally found this HP and defense stat to be comfortable enough, but as always, your relic farming might yield higher or lower numbers, or might skew her towards more defense or more HP. If you want to try squeezing in more damage, getting crit and damage boost stats can help with that, or break effect if you want to try working around a quantum break playstyle. However, trading survival stats for offensive stats reduces the potency of her HP scaling effects and tankiness, which I would recommend you to prioritize more. Of course, it's up to you to determine what you're personally comfortable enough with. Then for Fu Xuan's relic sets, the most flexible option is 2-piece combos among the HP, speed, damage reduction sets, and the 2-piece defense set is also fine. You'll get useful bonuses while having the flexibility to choose pieces with good substats. I highly recommend just going for these, as they'll be more efficient to farm. But if you're wondering about 4-piece sets for her, the 4-piece Guard of Weathering Snow reduces damage received and regenerates HP and energy if the user is at 50% or lower HP at the start of their turn. But since Fu Xuan already has a built-in self-healing mechanic, this generally ends up being redundant. It can be an added fail-safe measure, but generally speaking, once you've optimized Fu Xuan, it's very unlikely you'll get to proc its 4-piece 4-piece effect. The 4-piece Longevous Disciple can let Fu Xuan stack a crit rate bonus, but note that the apportion damage will not trigger the crit rate stack. Rather, Fu Xuan needs to get damaged by the enemies themselves. The 4-piece effect is for boosting damage, but just combining the 2-piece with a speed, defense, or damage reduction set is simply going to be better for her tank role. If you're going to try squeezing more damage from Fu Xuan, there's the Genius of Brilliant Stars set, but you're sacrificing defensive utility for offensive bonuses, which I don't recommend, but that's up to you. As for her planar ornaments, the Fleet of the Ageless gives her HP and a team-wide attack bonus at 120 speed, which are all useful support utilities. The Broken Keel set increases the user's effect resistance and gives a team-wide crit damage bonus upon hitting 30% effect resistance. This helps prevent debuffs from applying on Fu Xuan herself while also boosting team damage. And the Sprightly Von Whack increases the user's ERR and advances them at the start of battle, which can set up her matrix earlier if you weren't able to use her technique, or just generate a skill point sooner if you did. The 5% ERR bonus has specific scenarios where it can help shorten your recharge time by 1 turn. Check the earlier rotation section for reference. Now let's look at Fu Xuan's light cone options. A free-to-play 5-star light cone that synergizes well for her is the Texture of Memories, which you can get from Herta's store. It has high base stats, gives effect resistance, and can generate a 2-turn shield that scales on the user's HP. It also reduces damage if the user is attacked with a shield active. All these benefits help boost Fu Xuan's survivability, which makes it a great value light cone. If you're saving your Herta store currency and want other options, we still have pretty good alternatives. Among the 3-star options, Defense adds self-healing upon using an ultimate, and Amber gives the user a defense bonus. Both of them are fine, and you can replace them once you get better options. With the 4 stars, Day 1 of My New Life permanently gives a damage resistance buff to your team, which further complements Fu Xuan's team-wide damage reduction buff and gives Fu Xuan some defense to make herself tankier. These effects help further mitigate apportion damage to improve Fu Xuan's self-sustain, while also making your entire team tankier in general. Then, Landau's Choice increases the user's aggro and reduces the damage taken. It'll make Fu Xuan more likely to get hit, which keeps the heat off other allies, and the damage reduction bonus makes her tankier at least. More enemy hits means faster energy regeneration, so that should help with spamming her ult more often. However, it may anti-synergize with allies that actually want to get hit, like Blade or Clara. The least ideal 4-star alternative is We Are Wildfire, which is purchasable from the Forgotten Hall shop. However, the damage reduction buff only lasts for 5 turns, and the healing effect at the start of every battle has limited usefulness. So while it's a viable and free-to-play friendlier alternative, the previous options are generally more recommended if you have them. Going on to 5 stars, if you manage to get the Moment of Victory, it's still a viable option despite being a defense-focused light cone. It gives really high base stats, and just like Landau's Choice, it increases the user's chances of getting targeted. The defense stats also make Fu Xuan tankier, which helps improve her self-sustain. The effect hit rate will be wasted on her though, and like Landau's Choice, be wary of it potentially stealing attacks from allies you want to get targeted. Lastly, She Already Shut Her Eyes is her signature and best light cone. It gives very high base stats, an HP bonus, ERR bonus, damage buff for allies, and an HP restoration mechanic which heals at the start of each wave, but depending on how many waves there are, or if you can clear the pre-boss waves with still very high HP, the HP restoration might feel quite unnecessary. Of course, don't be pressured to pull for this, and I found her to be very capable even with 4-star light cones. At the very least, you already have a great free-to-play friendly 5-star option, the Texture of Memories. Now let's discuss her team comp Synergies, which isn't exactly that complicated. The great thing about her as a preservation unit is that she generally works very well with almost any team, and her team-wide HP buff, crit rate buff, damage reduction buff, and CC debuff prevention are all universally appreciated bonuses. She also has some situations where she has better utility than other existing preservation and abundance supports. The first obvious perk is that she's a quantum unit, making her better against quantum weak enemies. And since her ultimate lets her deal quantum damage just like Luocha, she can help in breaking enemies faster in AoE scenarios. Another is that she gets more synergy with Blade and any unit in the future that wants to actually receive damage, which contrasts Japard, March, and Fire Trailblazer, who mainly protect your allies by preventing damage and or manipulating enemy aggro. Her Matrix's HP buff also helps units that have HP scalings, like Blade's damage multipliers, and whatever HP scaling units we get in the future. However, it won't be good to pair her with units that really need damage prevention. The top example of this is Yanqing, whose Soul Steel Sync state will deactivate if he takes damage, which significantly affects his damage output. If there are any units in the future that have a similar mechanic, then they'll likely prefer a good old shielder instead. Since her Matrix's HP and crit rate buffs are also tied to her own turns rather than her allies, then at least very fast allies or having advanced forward effects in the team, like Su Xiang or Bronya, won't make them consume the buffs much faster. Additionally, Fu Xuan can fill in the missing piece of quantum-focused teams as a much-needed survival support, and with Silver Wolf, she also enables team combos that are dual quantum and another element. This makes Silver Wolf's weakness implant either have a 50-50 or 100% chance to apply an element, depending if the enemy already has one of the elemental weaknesses. But at the end of the day, just slap her on any team and she'll pretty much keep them alive. As a final topic, let me also share some observations of her autoplay performance. 1. Fu Xuan will consistently keep the Matrix field up, so she'll always activate her skill right before it expires. This is important as it'll ensure her defensive measures and buffs are always affecting the team. 2. It also seems that Fu Xuan will always use her ultimate as soon as it's ready, so this minimizes the risk of wasted energy. This also means that the computer isn't as good with timing quantum breaks on her, but that's not really a huge issue. All in all, Fu Xuan's autoplay mode is pretty comfy and does an excellent job of keeping her team and herself alive, since the computer always tries to keep the Matrix active, her self-healing utility is automatic anyway, and she consistently uses her ultimate ASAP to regain self-heal triggers. And that's all for this guide. Fu Xuan's an extremely comfortable unit to have on your team and has an impressive combination of survival utilities that should make her a very good pull for anyone looking for a strong solo sustain unit. Of course, if you're already very content with your 4-star and 5-star abundance and preservation roster, then Fu Xuan might not be that appealing to you anymore. But if you're one of the players that just doesn't have any of the 5-star standard supports yet, you skipped or failed to get Locha, or you're a somewhat new player progressing through the game's increasing difficulty, then Fu Xuan can be a very high pull value character whose unique mechanics won't be contested anytime soon, if at all. Let me know what you think of Fu Xuan, whether you've already got her on your account or if you've gotten to do her trial. If this video helped you out, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Take care!